All right, everybody. Apologies for a little bit of a late start. Had some little technical difficulties setting things up here, but we should be good to go. Um, just double checking the audio and the video here. Okay, looks like we should be good. So I am going to kind of go over just my general experience at ISC, talk about what I saw with One Gateway, talk about what I saw with um, the Smart Gateway, everything with Xtract One, as well as get into some of the competition, some interesting conversations that I had with some potential customers and some of the reps from some of these other competitors here. So I showed a little bit of video on my Discord. If you guys saw that, hopefully maybe you guys have some questions with that. And other than that, we're just gonna kind of dive right in, and then at the end, I will make sure I go through all of the comments, answer any questions that I can, things like that. Okay. So first of all, I think as far as the conference goes, just from a high level, it was packed. There were a ton of people there, and the booth for Xtract as well was pretty busy every time that I went to it. I would say, there were maybe, I don't know, some people said 9 sales reps. I didn't count exactly, but there were at least 6 or 7 reps from Xtract there. And at any given time, I would see only like 1 or 2 maybe not currently helping a customer. I wasn't there the whole time, obviously, but long story short, it seems like the interest is there. I would say the interest in that booth, the amount of people at Xtract's booth was pretty similar to that of Evolv's as well. They had a decent amount of people. Evolv's booth was a little bigger, so it's hard to tell exactly the comparison there. Um, as far as the other competitors, they kind of all had less. I would say Xonar probably had the least. They also had the smallest booth, and they were kind of off to the side of the main expo space. But a lot of that is like how much money you're willing to pay, right? Just because one person's booth is bigger, it's not necessarily a matter of the interest. It's probably how much you spend, at the expo. But either way, kind of some good points there. Um, I The first thing that I did actually when I went to the conference is I kind of just walked through, saw everybody's booth, saw the interest. But as far as one of the main reasons, obviously, I was there to test out the One Gateway, and just also get an update on the Smart Gateway as well. And so I do want to show a couple videos here. Let me see. Let me just put them on this screen over here, and I will show you guys. The first one I want to show you guys is actually on Smart Gateway. And one thing I will say about Smart Gateway, I know a lot of the interest and a lot of the focus seems to be on One Gateway right now. I think a lot of people are expressing that sentiment on the Discord server and things like that. But I would say the Smart Gateway is pretty dialed in. It was very quick. It was very smooth. Every time that I tested it, it seemed to be very good. So let me just present. Let's see. Share screen. And I'm going to show this right here. And so this is Smart Gateway. Everybody probably recognizes it. Most of you guys have been in the stock for a little while. But I just want you to watch kind of the speed and the accuracy of this. So I bought when I flew in, when I landed, I went to one of the souvenir shops and I bought a little Swiss Army knife. It was about the size the length of my wallet. So probably about maybe 3.5 inches long, pretty small knife. But a decent amount of metal in there because it's a Swiss Army knife. It's not just the blade, right? It's got the screwdriver and all the little different things in there. But just I'll play this for a second. You guys can I'll play it a couple times. You guys can watch. Just walking through, not super fast. Um, but yeah, so that's what I had right in my pocket there, and it recognized exactly where it was. I'll play that one more time. Right there. So right the alert there is right at my left pocket, which is exactly where the knife was. Very quick, very smooth. You guys can see also in, let's see, let me pull up the other video of the sphere. So I went to the sphere as well, and I just want to get quickly through Smart Gateway first, and then I'll get into some of the stuff with One Gateway. But I went to the sphere. The sphere was awesome, guys. Really, really cool, just from a visuals perspective, but also cool to see Xtract One in action. And they do have the different ones with the cameras on top. And so I'll just show a quick video of that as well, so you guys can see. This one is on the Discord server. So if you guys already saw that, you will be familiar with this. But this is at the sphere. This is walking in. So they have several, maybe like 6 or 7, I think, gateways, smart gateways here. They do have that that kind of top cap there with the camera as well. And as we know, this can be used, or is being used actually, for facial recognition, band patrons, things like that. Just kind of play this while I'm talking. I only got to take a little bit of video here because the head of security kind of got a little curious with me, taking some videos. He ended up coming up to me and kind of asking me what I was doing. I explained, I was taking video from an investor perspective, but he was just a little, understandably, kind of a little skeptical there. So I only took a little bit of video, but you guys kind of get the gist of it here. Seemed like everything was going relatively smoothly. There were more people being wanded than I kind of expected. But it seemed like a lot of the people that were getting maybe false alerts. You can see this guy here. He's taking off this bag that he had on when he walked through. A lot of the people that seem to be getting the false positives, if they were false positives, who knows? Maybe they were actually catching some knives and whatnot. I didn't kind of stick around and watch everybody that went into secondary. But it seemed like a lot of the people that did have that had little fanny packs and things like that, that we know, the smart gateway isn't meant for a whole lot of clutter. In most places, they're going to make you, open up your bags, take out your bags anyway. So for the most part, the people that just walked right in with no bags, with just, phone, keys, whatever, seemed to be pretty smooth. And it did. One of the other things on the false positives is one thing that I mentioned to one of the reps after I went here, because I went here on the first night. I went to the Sphere Wednesday night, and then Thursday I went back to the expo. And one of the things that he mentioned, the rep that I was talking to, because I was like, yeah, the false positive, seemed to be maybe a little high. And he's like, oh, we just, our guys over there doing one of the updates now. Should kind of smooth out some of that. I don't know if they had some issues. And I think Peter mentioned doing an update. I forget what they called it. The fast flow update, I think, is what they were calling it, to kind of up that speed just a little bit. Because like I said, when I was checking out the one at the expo, it was very fast, very smooth. They mentioned getting alert times in less than a second, which is much higher than what it was before. The last time I went to ISC and I tested it out, it was at least a few seconds. So you got, took several steps through the gateway before it alerted. Getting it down to the 1 second, definitely a plus side here for them. By the way, if you guys, any questions that you have, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'll probably get to most of them at the end, but if it's relevant to the what I'm talking about, I will definitely go for it. That's kind of most of the gist of it on Smart Gateway. Looks like they're definitely have got that product very dialed in, working very well. And I think it's from what I have experienced with the testing myself, definitely the best when it comes to just stadiums, arenas, whatnot, especially when it comes to knives and things like that. But, depending on the venue, some people might not care about knives as much or, whatnot, and are more looking fast flow. So something like Cheya Open Gate that's cheaper might be, a decent competitor there to large entertainment venues that might not care as much about knives and things like that. Let's see. We got Anders. Did you try and bring the object, the weapon, in your shoe or on your calf through the one gateway or smart gateway? And if so, was it detected? I did not. I didn't put it in my shoe or anything low like that. The one gateway, as far as that, it's not really, as we know, meant for, or it doesn't do as well with the knives and smaller weapons yet. I took the knife through in my pocket and in my backpack a couple times, and it caught it, I would say, 30% of the time. But again, right now they have it tailored more for the guns and things like that. The smart gateway caught it every time. One thing I will say though, speaking of putting the knife, in different locations and whatnot, kind of jump to Evolv and some of the competitors before I get into one gateway, because um, one of the big things with the one gateway obviously is the bag detection and things like that. And I tested the one gateway out a little bit the first day, and I was impressed. I was kind of hesitant. The false positive rate seemed a little high, and I think I talked about this on the Discord that night. After I had gone to the expo the first day, and so I went around to a lot of the competitors the next morning, and that afternoon a little bit. And one of the things that I noticed on Evolv, if we're talking about carrying the knife through and whatnot, we know that they have um, the bag scanner and things like that. And let me I can start pulling up one of those videos here. But um, the thing about Evolv that we know and we've known for a while is they have trouble with knives, right? And one of the things that was very interesting is I was over at the Xonar booth, and when I was over at the Xonar booth, I was talking and to one of the reps, and everybody's got their badges. They have the badges with the company that they're from and whatnot. So all the reps, you can see that they're from that company. But even the people like me, the attendees, will have different companies that they're from, badges, things like that. And one of the interesting things I noticed, one of the guys over at Xonar, I noticed the name on his badge, and I talked to him, and they they don't want to, you know, um, they want to remain anonymous, I guess, if you will. But the interesting thing is they were an Evolv customer, and he said something very interesting to the guy over at Xonar. I was kind of eavesdropping on in the conversation, and I talked to the guy after, and I caught him. It was two guys actually. They were walking away, and I caught him, and I said, "Hey, um, not to intrude. I heard you mentioning Evolv. I'm looking at Evolv and some of these other companies from an investment standpoint. Do you mind telling me what the issue was with Evolv? What you guys were seeing?" And he was a little hesitant, but he ended up kind of talking to me. And one of the issues that they or basically an issue that they have with Evolv, they have it in one aspect of their business that they use, that's entertainment, right? Um, and he says it works okay, but in this other aspect of their business where they have higher standards and they need to catch knives, he says it's a no go. Um, Evolv, he flat out says Evolv has trouble with knives. So validation from, another customer, if we didn't, know enough already about Evolv with knives, they are still having issues with knives even after some of these improvements that we've been seeing. Um, that said, the other very interesting thing that he said, and this is, goes back to the comment that I just read about carrying it in my shoe or by my calf. I should have probably done that. That would have been interesting. Is he mentioned that even with the Evolv systems that they're using, they have trouble detecting things in people under 1 meter tall. So basically, kids. If you think about that, they have trouble with with missing things, and even false positives on children, basically anyone under 1 meter tall. So it's mostly going to be children. And what my thinking on that is, I didn't get too far into it with him because, I didn't want to take up his time and kind of push him too far. But the thing that I'm thinking is that means Evolv is probably getting economical with how many sensors they're really putting in the system and the spacing with them, and they're probably concentrating most of the sensors that they're using around the average kind of pocket height, or waist height of a person, and probably some around the ankles and things like that. But where that is obviously going to be a huge issue is schools, right? And so, if we're talking about having trouble with people under 1 meter tall, that's basically any elementary school, and even a lot of high schools. You have some shorter kids and whatnot. And so that's something that I thought was very interesting. And so I went over to the Evolv booth actually, and I talked to one of the reps for a while. And one of the things that, was really interesting is I walked through, and I'll show you guys a quick video of this if I can get it to come up in a second. But one of the things that they have now as a kind of competition to the One Gateway is that bag scanner, that X-ray machine that they put on next to the Evolv Express. Well, I walked through the Evolv Express 3, 4, 5 times maybe, and it did not catch. It caught, I think, one out of the 4 times that I walked through. It actually caught that Swiss Army knife that I showed in that video just previously. And again, we know that they have trouble with knives, so it wasn't super surprising, but just more validation that the current system is still having trouble with knives. The other thing, though, and this was kind of scary and interesting, but scary for Evolv and for all of the customers that use them, but good for Xtract One, is that they have this X-ray machine that's supposed to be the solution to carrying bags and laptops and whatnot through there. Well, I put the knife in my backpack. The guy let me put my backpack through the X-ray machine, and the X-ray machine didn't catch the knife. So either way, there you're missing the knife, and it seems like while the X-ray machine may be kind of a makeshift band-aid way to put together um, a system that works around laptops and things like that and still allows you to catch knife or still allows you to catch guns, even with the X-ray machine, it seems like they're going to have a lot of trouble with knives, because actually, interestingly enough, the way that the X-ray machine worked, it wasn't like somebody sitting there watching, like the TSA or at airports when you have the readout, the picture of what's in the bag. It goes through and it either alerts red or green whether there's a weapon in there or not. And only if it alerts red does it actually show you the picture of what's in the bag. And even then, the guy said, really, we just recommend searching the bag because we don't want people looking at the picture and not seeing anything. So I think that, one, is going to slow things down, and two, doesn't seem like it's really going to do well with small knives. At least as of now. Maybe they, improve that. Obviously, it's a new product for them. Maybe it's something that gets improved as time goes on. But at least in the short term, that's what we're looking at on Evolv. Let me see here. We got a couple questions. Did you get an understanding on how knowledgeable the systems visitors at the booths were. That's a good question. It seemed like a lot of people. It seemed like a mix. I would say um, there were some very knowledgeable. The more knowledgeable ones seem to be actually either current customers of a competitor's system, or the other knowledgeable ones were resellers. That one of the ones again over at the Xonar booth was a reseller that sold Evolv, and I think maybe Ceia. A lot of these resellers sell multiple of the systems, and they're just looking at, okay, I'll sell this one too, and so they're kind of looking at different ones. But then there were a lot of people that didn't know a lot, and they were kind of new. They maybe knew about obviously metal detectors and things like that, but new to the weapons detection system and whatnot. Um, Let's see. What do we got? How did they react to missing the knife? Well, I didn't tell them that I had a knife in my backpack or in my pocket, so they didn't really react. I didn't get to see that. I didn't really want to tip my hand. I tried not to telegraph anything when I went to any of these competitors' booths. Um, I just wanted to get their, you know, raw, unfiltered, sales pitch basically. Um, and so, really quickly, I do want to get in before we take up too much time on the stream. Get into the last couple of competitors and get into the one gateway. The other competitors that I went to, so I went to Evolv. That's kind of my experience with Evolv. I went to Xonar. It was really interesting. It was very salesman like. The people that were the kind of the reps that were there. One of the guys I think was the president, and it was very like they're trying to sell you stuff. It was oriented that way, which I don't know, just me personally kind of turns me off. Evolv wasn't as bad as that, was kind of like that. Another one of the competitors, Athena, it was like ultra salesman, that guy could have been on QVC. And then Xtract, it wasn't very, and obviously I'm biased, so take that for what you will. But um, one thing that I did like about the guys from Xtract is they weren't super in your face sales, and I think part of that is because a lot of the guys that were there weren't actually salesmen. There was like, you know, um, head of marketing, which I guess you could say is salesman, but not necessarily. There was like some engineering guys, and there was like product development and whatnot. So a lot of guys that were just more knowledgeable about the product rather than trying to really push the product on you and sell it to you. Just more so going for the knowledge there. So that was one of the things that I did like. But the other competitors, Cheya, the guy was very open. He really honestly described it as a metal detector. He said it's going to have trouble. It basically can't do laptops. Um, and that was really the main thing that brought me back to the one gateway, was and really kind of more vigorously testing it on the second day, is every single one of the competitors. Uh, Xonar, Evolv, Xonar and Evolv both had the bags X-ray scanners there at their booths. Athena, Cheya, and this one other competitor that I'm blanking on the name right now, was one that I hadn't seen before. Every single one of them said something to the effect that either they can't do bags, they don't see themselves ever being able to do bags aside from the X-ray machine. And it was basically like the X-ray machine is the only way to go. The Evolv guy basically said something like, the technology just isn't, it's just not in the technology's wheelhouse to be able to do that with the way that the sensors work. The Athena guy basically said, "Yeah, X-ray is the only way to go." He's like, "It's impossible to." I think he actually might have used the word impossible, maybe not. Um, but yeah, and Cheya and Xonar, all of them currently. Xonar was the only one that maybe expressed possibly the ability to innovate into that later down the road. But all of the other ones seem to be really going with the X-ray machine, whether that be because they don't want to mention that maybe, they know the one gateway is over there and they don't want people to know that, or because they legitimately think that, the one gateway can't do what it says it does. And it was interesting because there were a couple of Evolv guys going and checking it out that second day that I checked it out. Let me get to a couple questions here in case I'm missing anything. Do you know how the one gateway performs? Let's see. With briefcases or suitcases compared to backpacks? That's a good question. I would imagine it's pretty similar. But I did not have a briefcase myself. I had a backpack though that was pretty cluttered, and so yeah, let me just get into kind of the second day of testing, really kind of vigorously, more so testing the the one gateway on that second day, and that was really kind of the highlight, I would say, and really the main focus of this trip. Honestly, was to test for myself and obviously report back to you guys the one gateway, because if the one gateway can do what it says it can do, and if all those competitors are like, yeah, we can't do it, then there's a big opportunity here. And so the one gateway, I went through and I'll just pull up one of these videos here. So I went through the second day, and in my backpack, I had my laptop. I had my laptop charger. I had a large, like larger than my phone, probably about, where's the camera here? Uh, I would say 6 inches by 4 inches, a big like portable phone charger, power bank type of thing. Um, I had a steel, relatively like medium to large steel water bottle. I also had, several pens, change of clothes, um, and my belt, and all the normal things: phone, keys, wallet, etc. Um, and it worked perfectly every single time that I tried it on this second day. So I'm going to show you this video here. I didn't get a ton of video, partly because when I did get kind of the best video, which I'll show here, some guys went and stood in front of my camera and blocked kind of the back half of the video. So I had to cut it a little short there. But let me just show you guys this. This again is also on the Discord server, so you guys can check it out. But this is me going through with everything in my backpack. You can see I even got another. I have another water bottle there as well. Let me see. Is this going to play here for me? But I want you to notice when I'm walking through, and I'll do a close up of this tablet as well here. But when I'm walking through, sorry about the buffering here. I don't know. It was just playing for me a second ago. Let's see. Let me reload this. Let me go to. Let's do. Okay. I'll reload this up here. Okay. Yeah. So I have everything in my backpack here, and want you to watch when I walk through the side kind of light strips here, which is what is alerting. So the first time I have nothing, no weapon on me or anything. So you can see I just walk through. Nothing goes off on these bar strips. There is something that I'll zoom in. I'll show you in a second here on this little tablet that would normally be, closer to whoever's watching. So I asked the guy if I could borrow the kind of fake gun, and so I walked through with it at my waist. Excuse the way I'm handling that fake firearm. I'm looking pretty terrible there, but looked on there, and you can see it alerted. And so I held it at my chest this time. I did it in a few other positions and whatnot. But as you can see, these guys kind of stepped, and I noticed they were kind of going and blocking my camera. So I had to stop the video there because they ended up just sitting right in front of the camera. But you can see that first time when I walk through with the gun, we'll go right here. So you see, right after I walk through, it's red, and it's on this side too. You can't really see it, but that shows exactly where it's at on the body. And this tablet here will show. Let's see, it'll show. Let me just share. Can I share my other monitor? Yeah, we'll share this. So on that screen is this. And so you can see this is a history. They have another version that fills up the whole screen that I'll show you in another video here. But you can see the little icon of the gun. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. The icon of the gun is right where I was holding it each time. And the video, it only got me this one time. Remember, this is the first time that I walked through. This is the second time. If you guys go back and watch that video, if you watch it on my Discord server or whatnot, you'll notice the first time that I walked through, I came from behind the system and walked very tightly, just kind of walked around it. So I wasn't walking straight from in front of it through it. The only time that I did that was this time here, which is why that's the only time that it actually has my face there. The other times I was kind of making loops. And so I really didn't walk through it in the way normally you would intend somebody to walk from a line into it. That's why the video only caught me that one time. But you can see it recognizes, one, not only that it's a threat, but it specifically says it's a gun, and it has the specific location on my body there. And it does this very quickly. And so you can see, I think this is the other video with Peter. Yeah. So this is Peter walking through here. And this is a really cool thing. So notice the first time he's walking through, he's got that fake gun. And that's that bigger display now that you would normally have it on for the security guard, where it fills up the screen. Same thing, alerts for him there. And you can see on this side panel here, the red showing where on the body as well. But watch, this is really interesting. Watch when he walks back through. So he's got a backpack on, and it alerts, and you can see, notice on the strip here, it's yellow now, right? This is that bidirectional sensing that they have, where they can scan for different things on the way in and other things on the way out. So what this is saying is, hey, this guy's carrying a laptop. You can see if I can zoom in. Is it gonna let me zoom in? Let's see. Well, it's not gonna let me zoom in, but you can see on the video there, you guys should be able to see it pretty well, that there's a laptop there. And this is, again, that bidirectional sensing that I think is really going to be a game changer for distribution centers, for any, like Amazon, Walmart, whatnot. Again, you just walk through there and it alerted. But that sensing of electronics, other things, you can see this specifically says laptop, is I think going to be a real game changer when it comes to the smart gateway, along with the fact that it can do what all of the other guys say is impossible, basically, which is, scan people walking through with backpacks. Let me get to a couple of these questions, and I got a couple more things, and then we'll wrap it up here pretty soon. Let's see. We got, how fast would you say Xonar is compared to the One Gateway? That's a good question. I would say it's relatively similar. I don't think I have. Let's see. I don't have a video on my computer of. Let's see. I got a video here on my phone. Let's see what the speed is like. It's about the same. It's about the same as the one gateway. Now, I would say again, Xonar can't do bags, at least at the moment. Xonar, the main differentiator for those of you that don't know with Xonar versus Xtract and all the other competitors, Xonar is said to be capable of detecting non-metallic threats. One of their big things that they've touted because they did the LA Football Club is smoke bombs. Um, some threats that are non-metallic that still obviously different customers might want caught, ceramic knives, plastic guns, things like that. And I didn't really get to test it out because they were kind of only allowing employees to walk through, which take that for what you will. Maybe it's sketchy, maybe it's not. But that it's obviously an interesting thing, and it's a market or a differentiator that could be a selling point in certain markets. But I think it's still not quite there, and maybe they get it to the point where it's some decent competition. But at the moment, um, I would say that's kind of where it's at. It's about the same speed, but it can't do the bags, and so it's maybe a competitor in some cases to the smart gateway, but definitely not a competitor to the one gateway. Would also very much like to hear your thoughts on the current valuation of the company if there is time for it. Yeah, I'll get to that maybe a little bit at the end, or if I don't get too far into it, if we end up running out of time, I'll make another video probably soon about something like that. How does the cable management of the one gateway compare to the smart gateway? It seemed, relatively similar. Both were very low profile. Um, Honestly, I didn't really see any wires at all. They're kind of obviously hidden underneath. You can kind of see a little bit down here. The wires go underneath this mat, but honestly, I wouldn't say wires were really an issue at all with that. What did Xtract One staff say or do to attract visitors? Show company product, awards, names, respectable customers. I would say a couple things. One, they were obviously showcasing the product. They had everything, I would say, displayed very well. They had some brochures in front that kind of went through some of the differentiators, like being able to detect, or scan bags, being able to handle laptops, things like that. Um, third party verifications as well. There were some some references to some customers, some of their bigger customers. When I was listening to Peter and other people talk about the smart gateway and the one gateway, not so much in the one gateway, of course, because they don't have too many customers, or they've just started to launch that product, right? But as far as the smart gateway, the Sphere was mentioned, Madison Square Garden, etc. So referencing those big customers and using that as a selling point as well. And then they had some merch too. I got a little T-shirt, so that was kind of cool. But I would say they overall they did a good job. And like I said, I think it was just easy to talk to the guys. It was, and maybe it was because again, I'm biased, and maybe it was because they knew that I wasn't interested necessarily in buying. I introduced myself. They knew who I was, so maybe that's why the conversations were just kind of more friendly and easy and whatnot. But even listening to a lot of them talk, it was really more informative and whatnot, rather than really trying to push a product, which I think is the right approach. And Yeah, I was impressed. I liked the way that they were approaching that. Has the passageway become narrower at the one gateway compared to the smart gateway? No, I think they're both right about the same. I did ask that question, and I think it was about 36 inches, if I'm remembering that correctly. Um, I think both of them, the ideal width is about 36 inches. There is some wiggle room there. I was talking to one of the engineering guys. There is some wiggle room in spreading or tightening that distance. And so, whereas Evolv and Xonar and a lot of the other competitors um, are kind of fixed distances, you do have a little bit more flexibility with that. But as far as the standard distance, or the ideal distance, I should say, where you get the best, most consistent alert rates, I think it's about 36 inches. I could be a little bit off on that, but I think they were saying that's really what they're looking at. Um, so yeah, I mean that's like overall, I think the biggest takeaway from ISC for me is that right now nobody, it seems like, can touch one gateway, and one gateway seems to be the real deal. Um, the other thing that was interesting is I kind of got a new perspective a little bit on false positive alert rates, and part of that was going to the sphere and kind of what I mentioned, and talking to the Xtract One rep about seeing what looked like a slightly higher false positive rate on the bags and whatnot, um, and him talking about the update and things like that. And I kind of realized, um, what I think Peter has maybe mentioned, but it's hard to actually understand until you kind of go and walk through some of these and whatnot. Is that even like they mentioned, I think a few months ago, maybe the one gateway was at like a 20% false positive alert rate, and we all like hear that and we're like, that's really high. But when you go from, a metal detector, right? If that's your other option, or even you go from you look at Evolv and Ceia and all of these other companies that require you to take the laptops out of your bags, or put them in an X-ray scanner or whatnot. All of these other companies is 100% false alert rate, essentially, because you're having to take these extra steps. You're essentially having to secondarily search, if you will, everyone, because they can't handle the bags. And so for the one gateway, I can see now much better how, because at first I think when we all saw that, myself included, it was like, oh man, like that's a pretty decent alert rate. I don't know if I would want to go with that as a school or a potential customer. But when you think about these schools, like if they want to go with one of these systems and their options are, okay, I'll have to search every fifth student possibly because they may false alert, or I have to go through everybody's backpack, or I have to have everybody put their backpack on this bag scanner and then walk around and then pick it up. And if somebody's alerts, then it kind of backs up the bags and all of that. Even at the 20% false positive rate, you're still leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. And I think from what it seems, they're tailoring that down. It didn't seem like 20%, at least the second day that I tested, it seemed much lower than that. It didn't falsely alert on any of my walkthroughs. And so I think really kind of that's a game changer there. Let me see. I think we got a couple more questions. Do you think Xonar can really detect smoke bombs, or does it just react to all cardboard packaging? That's a good question. I don't know. Um, I did, when I was over at the booth, the guy was kind of displaying it, demonstrating it, walking through. There were at least a few times. I would say I would say maybe 20 to 30% of the time, it either didn't catch something when he was trying to get it to catch something, or vice versa. Um, so, like I said, I think it's an interesting concept, and if they can really dial it in, it has some potential because obviously there are certain markets where you really, you know, it would really be an advantage to be able to detect things that aren't metallic. But I think at the moment, at least, it's not quite prime time ready. That's just my opinion. Let's see. What else we got here? Thank you for taking the trip. Yeah, no problem. I, it was very informative for myself, and to just be able to do that and test it out myself, I think is a huge validation, for my confidence in the company and the stock, and especially for the One Gateway in particular. Is the cable on the One Gateway display permanent, or is it just for charging? Can it be removed and held in your hand like a tablet? I believe it can be held in your hand like a tablet. They were talking about Wi-Fi and things like that. I think it might be in certain environments like we were at ISC. A lot of I would say Evolv, Xtract, and Xonar, actually, and Athena all mentioned issues with the Wi-Fi at ISC, and so it could just be that they were having a lot of issues with the Wi-Fi, and they wanted to do it wired in that scenario. I think you can probably it's a good question. I don't know for sure. I didn't ask it, but I think you can take it out and just have it on a podium or a pedestal there. In fact, I think that's what was being done at. Well, I guess that was Smart Gateway at the Sphere. So I shouldn't say that to validate it, but I think that's true. Um, any questions that I have missed? I think I got all of them. Um, Doc, as far as the valuation, let me just touch briefly on the valuation, and then maybe I'll make another video about it later. I think some of Peter's comments in the Wolf um, Alpha Wolf video are kind of telling, um, and I think so. I'll just say this. Let me see. Let me get this. So, as far as the valuation, um, I think it's undervalued, and just I'll make this like a 2-minute analysis. It's going to be obviously very rough, and maybe you guys, it'll be easy to critique. But maybe if it gets enough attention, I'll do a longer video about it later on. But let's just think about profitability for a second, because um, really one of the main ways that companies are valued in the stock market, right, is based on a PE ratio. Okay, so um, if we just think that let's say Peter has talked about, again, profitability in quarters, not years. That was like 2-3 quarters ago at this point. I can definitely see a realistic scenario, especially if One Gateway does what I think it can do, where fiscal 2026, because we're in fiscal 2025 right now, fiscal 2026 could potentially be, for the overall year, profitable. I think for sure fiscal 2027, and again, I'll go over my reasoning behind this and whatnot uh, in a later video. But I think, based on my analysis, that there is real potential for fiscal 2026 as a whole year to be profitable. Maybe not every quarter, but overall for the whole year to be profitable. And if we just think, from the standpoint of a PE ratio, right? Right now, what's the company valued at? Let's see. Right now, we're at 97 million Canadian. Okay. If they just do 2 million, right? if they just do $2 million in net income in fiscal 2026, right? You put, I think, the rate that this company is growing, especially if they do hit that profitability mark by fiscal 2026, that shows, continued growth. If they're able to do that, you could easily put, uh 200, PE on that, right? Easily, very easily, you could put 100 PE on that. And so if they do 2 million and you put 100 PE on that, that's a doubling of the stock right there. I think a 200 PE is much more reasonable, especially at the rate that they're growing. If they continue to be like doubling revenue year over year, or double digit or even triple digit growth in bookings and revenue, um, you put a 200 PE ratio on 2 million and you get $400 million, right? That's a 4x in the stock over, you know, what's that, year and a half or something. So again, that's very rough analysis. I'm not saying that 2 million is my estimate or anything like that. But just from a high level perspective, if we even just get a small profit in fiscal 2026, that especially sets us up for a very nice year, fiscal 2027. And you could see some real movement in the stock price, I think, at that point. So that's what I'll say about the valuation. Let me just do um, last questions here. Xonar is said to have a ticketing system. Have you seen anything about that? They did say that they have that. They didn't demonstrate it or anything, but the guy did mention that when they do ticketing and whatnot, this is what shows up on the LED screen. He mentioned that, but they didn't demonstrate it, so I didn't get to see it in action. Let's see. How big do you estimate the total market for one gateway? Honestly, I mean, I think the from a dollar perspective, I don't know. I'd have to do some math. But just think about, schools. How many schools, between elementary, high school, and even college, honestly, universities are in just the US, right? Um, Along with distribution centers for all the different companies. You think about Amazon, you think about Walmart, you think about UPS, DHL, FedEx, all of these companies, right? I think the total addressable market for one gateway um, is pretty huge. I think honestly it could possibly be bigger than the market for smart gateway. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But regardless, I guess the main idea is the market for both is so big, and we're just starting at this point, that the potential is not even quantifiable at this point. And I think that's another reason that I've said on my Discord server that even in a potential economic downturn, recession type of scenario, that who knows if it happens, but even if that does happen, I think Xtract stock is one of the places to be, because the stock is already beaten down and this company is so small and primed for such large growth that even if they only get, they could get single digit customer counts every quarter and still grow massively, especially depending on the size of those contracts. Whereas a larger, much more mature company, a lot of these other stocks are much more established companies that aren't going to be able to grow double digits quarterly, yearly, let alone quarterly. And so I think Xtract One, honestly, from a stock perspective and investment perspective, is really very attractive right now, especially in the current economic situation, because they're kind of, I would say, again, just my opinion, but in a lot of ways they're immune to some of the potential downside risks that a lot of other stocks are exposed to right now. Let's see. Yeah, no, you're definitely welcome, guys. I appreciate the comments there. I do what I can. I know I don't get videos out as much as I would like to, um, but I'm doing my best here, and I'm glad you guys appreciate it. Any other quick questions before we go? And by the way, those of you guys in Europe and um, some guys that it's maybe 1 in the morning right now. Um, you can leave a comment if you're rewatching this stream, and I will try to get to all of those comments as well. All right, looks like we're gonna finish up here. Again, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'll get to any comments that are on there. And if I do go back, I think I have a couple more videos of Evolv and a video of Xonar, the guy demonstrating that. I will post those in probably like a little unlisted video, YouTube video on the Discord. So if you guys aren't in the Discord, you can jump in there and you can go check out those videos if you're interested to see the competition and things like that. I'll just link those there so we don't make this video too long. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And I'll see you. Oh, one more thing. If you guys are still here, for those of you still watching, later this week, probably hopefully Thursday or Friday, I will be posting. I just did an interview with Karen actually for the financials. And it was kind of just a general breakdown of understanding Xtract One's financials. We got really into how the bookings and signed agreements pending and all of that works. There was some interesting stuff. So be watching for that. Check that out. Let's see. One last question. Any discussion of pricing and tariffs? Not really. Tariffs are so up in the air right now, and I think a lot of the ones that on Canada have been backed down anyway. So I don't think there's going to be a huge issue there. So, all right. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys, all of you, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day. See you guys.